Hey guys, this is Sergio at Shadowrealm TCG, and the guys just invited me on just to do a bit of a deck tech for a deck I've been using against them pretty recently, with a decent amount of success actually. So this deck is going to be a budget version of a True King Dino deck, and the reason why it's budget is because I don't have cards like Evenly Matched and Infinite Impermanence and all the hand traps and stuff like that, so it makes it a lot cheaper. It works just as well in my opinion, so long as you're not going to something like a championship or something. If you're just playing casually or you're going to like locals, then this deck works perfectly. I haven't had much problems at all. So I'm just going to start off with doing the main deck, and then I'm going to move on to the extra deck. And without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and start with one of the best monsters in the deck in general, and that's going to be Soul Eating Oviraptor. This card is your main searcher. Also, its secondary ability will allow you to combo being able to special summon this off of Draconic Diagram into popping Baby Sarasaurus. You can then special summon this, and then search out, and then you could even search out another Baby Sarasaurus, normal summon it, pop it with its second ability to special summon another level 4. Like, you can just see the potential with this card. It's the best card in the deck by far, other than the boss monsters, so always run this at 3. Don't compromise, always run it at 3. Then we have the first set of boss monsters, that is the Ultimate Conductor Tyranno. This card is ridiculous. It is so broken. It's insane and it's amazing. Dinos needed something like this. Being able to just banish 2 from your graveyard to special summon this is so easy to do in this deck. You're constantly getting rid of dinosaurs and sending them to the graveyard, like popping the babies from the Draconic Diagram and then sending them to the graveyard, and it's just so easy to summon this, and its effect to be able to attack all monsters at once and dealing 1,000 damage and destroying any defense position monster it goes against, and just being able to flip your opponent's board face down. This card is insane. Like, always run it at 3. You can choose 2, but I think that if you're gonna keep any card at 3, do this at 3. The only thing that I want to mention is that if you keep this at 2, change this to 1 over Text Squatless, and that's about it. Otherwise, 3 is perfect. Next we have, I'm just going to unveil the whole baby engine. So it's going to be 3 Baby Sarasaurus and then 2 Petite Pteranodons. And this is a perfect amount for the level of combos that you're going to be able to pull off in one game without having to constantly draw into these and have them be bricks. So the 3 babies are better than 3 Petite Pteranodons because there's no drawback to these, while this technically makes it so that you can't attack with the special summon monster that turn. So I think that you should always have 3 of these. You can have 3 of these if you really want and you really think you need the extra combo potential, but 2 is perfect. And like I said, having 3 is way more important than having 2 of these. So this is a perfect amount. I wouldn't change this, but if you really, really like having an extra petite, then go ahead and have at it, really. Next is going to be the True King part of the deck. So I run 3 Ignimizod and 2 Balarastos. And I wish I could run the Lethosagym, the Earth version, but they banned him because he's insane with this kind of deck. I run 3 Ignimizod because Ignimizod is just a big boss monster. It's really easy to summon from this deck, and you can usually end up getting him out from popping Balarastos with Draconic Diagram, special summoning him defense position, and then you can do a bunch of other shenanigans with the deck in order to get the other one out or to get a Balarastos out. Go into True King of all Calamities, and then, well, the game is either coming to an end there or it's starting to end because that card is insane. So I run 2 Balarastos because I think 3 is a bit too much, and most of the time you end up having to draw at 1 before you get both of these popped. So I think that 2 and 3 is a perfect amount, but you can run 3 if you would like. There's nothing stopping you. It's just this amount has worked perfectly for me. Now, moving on to my substitute hand traps, and that's going to be Effect Veiler. Effect Veiler is cheap, it works well, it does the job, and that's all I really have to say about it. And just as kind of like another substitute hand trap, because you're gonna have to play this card anyways because it's ridiculous. It's just miscellaneous Saurus. The fact that you can protect your dinosaurs from all card effects during the turn that you send them to the graveyard is just ridiculous. It's basically you get a free turn, so just have at it with your dinosaurs is what he does, and then you could just banish himself and any other dinosaurs from your graveyard to special summon like an Oviraptor, or you can just banish itself and get an ALO out, and that ALO can get you a Trishula. So you can see where I'm going with this. This card is insane. Always run it. I wish you could run it at more, but unfortunately you can only run one. Effect Veiler, definitely run Effect Veiler. If you can't, then you can probably put some trap cards like Dark Hole, like removal and stuff like that, but I think that having 2 Effect Veiler for how cheap it is common is definitely a great substitute than having really expensive hand traps. But if you have them, then use them, but Effect Veiler is great, so perfect substitute. Then 1 Giant Rex, because Giant Rex is really good in this deck whenever you want to summon the Superconductor. If he's in the graveyard, then you can just banish him, and then he comes back, and he's stronger than ever. So unfortunately you can't attack with him directly because that would be nuts, but the fact that you can just get him off of a Superconductor and then do even more combos from there is why you run this card. It's very good. Do not underestimate this card. It's very, very good. Now, 1 ALO, like I mentioned, because this card is the only reason you run it is for Trishula. You mostly want to set up to either do a turn 1 True King, turn 1 Link Spam, or a turn 1 Trishula, and this card gets you there. That's the only reason, and it's also a dinosaur, so that's tuner dinosaur, that's it. You could even use, if you really need, you could use the Effect Veiler as a tuner, as a substitute, but it's just a little bit easier with ALO. Next for the 1-of, it's going to be Megalo Smasher, and Megalo Smasher I only have it at 1 because he helps you get out Baja Rastos, and because of the fact that he's water, so that's the only reason. Do not run him at more than 1 because it's a waste of time. It's just a 2000 4-star, there's no effect, so only run him at 1. I only keep him in there for Baja Rastos, that's it. Then we have Monster Reborn. Monster Reborn is just really good, and there's no reason for you not to run it. It's really easy to come by, common, it's like in every rarity, so just run it. It's so good. You can do so many things. You can re-special summon like an Oviraptor that you lost last turn, and the amount of value you can get out of it is just nuts with this deck. And then we have 1 Upstart, and this is only because draw power is never bad, and the fact that you give your opponent 1000 health is completely irrelevant because your monsters are huge. Like, Nimazod is huge, your Ultimate Conductor is huge, your True King of All Calamities is huge, Trishula is plenty big enough, so there's no downside to running this card. Definitely run it. It's also cheap, so unfortunately you can only run it at 1 as well. Now for the main spells in the deck, you're going to run 2 Double Evolution Pill because it's almost a free Superconductor every time, because you're always going to have a True King either in your hand or in your graveyard, and then you can just banish one other dinosaur, and bam, now you have an Ultimate Conductor. And if you have both of these in your hand and you can get 2 Ultimate Conductors out without having one of them get destroyed or negated, it's basically GG. So go ahead, always run 2. You can run 3 if you want, but 2 is the best. It's still 2 even if you run the Overtext Coatless, because you don't want to flood yourself with too many of these. So 2 is a great mix because getting Ultimate Conductor is easy enough, but if you really, really need it and you don't have it in hand, you can't get it in hand, but you draw this is the other way to get to it very quickly. I run 3 Fossil Digs because Fossil Dig is great. It can search you a baby dinosaur if you have Draconic on the field and you need something to pop in order to get a combo off. You can use it to search Oviraptor. So this card is amazing. Always run it at 3. Always. Don't do 1 or 2. It's either 3 or none. Then 2 Terraforming because it's terraforming and you're running Draconic Diagram. Gets the job done, and you run it at 2 or you run it at none, basically. Speaking of Draconic Diagram, we're going to move into 3 Draconic Diagram. It's insanely cheap right now. It's been reprinted to all heck. It's the main combo extender in this deck, and I would always run it at 3. You can run 2. 2 will be just fine. It's just way more consistent at 3. And especially nowadays with all the spell and trap destruction with the nightmare tools and all that, you want to run 3 just to make sure that you always have one available to you. Especially now that you're only limited at 2 terraforming, having 3 is just way safer for the deck to work. Then because you're always going to run into hand traps if you're at a local, even sometimes casual, I run 2 called bys. These are really cheap to get common, and it just saves your life so many times if somebody's Ash or somebody's Ghost Ogre goes off. This is one of the best ways to stop that from happening. Then for spell and trap destruction, we have the Twin Twisters. Twin Twisters is just insane, and you don't mind discarding cards with this deck because you need dinosaurs in the graveyard in order to get your superconductor out. So I would definitely run these at 2. You don't need any more than that because most of the time, if you're facing a back row deck, then I would substitute this for, I don't know, like an extra Twin Twister or heavy Storm Duster even. It's just something that can deal with it a bit better, but most of the time 2 Twin Twisters will do the job. And for the traps, this card, nobody ever expects it, and because nobody ever expects it, it's super, super valuable in this deck, I think. I've had so much success with it. It's so fun. 2 breakthrough skills. This card has saved me so many times because nobody expects it, and it's basically a double effect veil. I run it because it's cheap and it works, and nobody ever expects it in this day and age. And we'll just move right into the extra deck, and I'm gonna start, you can't see, but right now Tyler is flipping me off because of the amount of times that I've trolled him with breakthrough. I'm telling you guys, it's worth it. It's so worth it.
Not worth it.
If anything, it's worth it just to see the reaction from your opponent.
Ash Blossom. It's a lot better.
We're gonna start with True King of All Calamities because this card is so good, it's ridiculous. The fact that if you have this paired with your Chronic Diagram up, it's a 3300 beat stick with the ability to make it so your opponent can't use any of their monster effects for the entire turn. And you can also use its secondary effect to tribute your opponent's monsters to get your own True Kings out. This card is nuts. I wish you could run more, but unfortunately you can't. You're limited to 1. So always run 1. You need this card. It's so good and it's cheap. And that's all that's really important, is that it's cheap and it works. Next, for the Evolve Czars, I run 1 Dolka, 1 Logia. But personally, I would switch this out for another Dolka instead of the Logia. That's just a personal choice because I never really go into Logia, but most of the time you want to either go into Dolka first turn with like a Link and this card, or you want to go into like a Link and True King and then eventually get to this card. But this card is so good because its effect is not once per turn, so you can just keep doing it over and over again and stopping your opponent's plays so long as it's not negated itself. So this card is amazing. This card it's fine. It's fine, but it's not as good as this card. Definitely at least one of these. Then for some matchups, this card is useful. Abyss Dweller. If you know you're going against a Burning Abyss deck, this card destroys it, basically. If they can't get rid of it and you can just do it during their main phase, you can just detach one. They can't really do anything that turn because of the fact that it just stops their entire deck from happening. So this card is really only useful if you know you're going to be facing Burning Abyss or any other deck that relies very heavily with the graveyard. Even Mirror Match, this card can do well because of the fact that you use so many baby dinos that have that effect in the graveyard. So you don't need this card, but I highly recommend it. It's cheap, so might as well pick it up. Then we have Dark Rebellion XYZ Dragon. This card isn't needed at all. It's just really good to get over decks that also run big boss monsters or monsters that just have a lot of attack for no reason. They just have a lot of attack, so this card can help even the playing field a bit, and it can even squeeze out a bit more damage if you've already damaged your opponent heavily with Ultimate Conductor and your True Kings. This card can stomp over an opponent's monster. Even if it can be destroyed by battle, it can do just enough to end the game that you need. So I would recommend it, but you don't need it. You really don't need it. It's just useful. Another card you don't need but is really useful is Evil Swarm Exoton Knight. This card is really good if you're going second and you just need a way to get back in the game, because if your opponent has a big board and it's co-linked everywhere and you can get this card out and just destroy everything, that is the ideal goal of this card. You don't need it, but it's just a really good comeback tool that if you can get, then I would run it just for the fact that it can save your life, really. That's about it. Then I run Castell because Castell is amazing, and there's no reason not to run Castell. I don't use them too much nowadays because you have cards like Dolka, and you have all the other rank 4s that I've gone over so far. So you don't go into them too much, but if it's late in the game and you need that extra removal or that extra negation, then he is your man, and he's just a really good rank 4. So if you can put him in, then why not? He's also cheap. Next is Silent Honor Arc. This card is really good if your opponent has one big threat that is special summoned that you can just take, basically, and then you're like, well, now it's not a threat anymore. So I would definitely pick this card up. It's also a water, so it can help you get into a Baharastos play. So you could get this card out and then steal your opponent's monster and then just tag it away for Baharastos, and then now you have an extra True King on the board. You could get Clambies out, so it's just really good. I would run this. I would definitely run this. Next is the Synchros, and this card is super important. Chambara is kind of your OTK tool because of the fact that it can attack multiple times. It's a guaranteed 24 or 2600. I forget if it's 44 or 4600. I always get kind of confused with the math, but it can attack twice, and it gains attack every single time it does its extra attack. So it's just amazing. If you get like this in Ultimate Conductor, then you're almost going to OTK your opponent every time. So definitely get this card. It's not very expensive. It was just reprinted, so definitely run at least one. Next is Trishula, which is another boss monster that you can get into really easily, especially around turn 1, because of the fact that you can abuse Oviraptor and the baby engine and then banish Miscellaneous to get a LO out, and it's just super easy to get into. And banishing 3 cards for 1 plus having it be a 2700 beat stick, it's so good. So always run him. Next is going to be the Lynx. So I run the Nightmare Toolkit because Spell Destruction is really good, and Trap Destruction is really good, and destroying a special summon monster in the main monster zone is never bad. So definitely always run these. These have saved my life so many times, and there's no reason not to. Next, I have a very obvious card, Decode. I don't go into it too much, but if you can get a Decode and then True King right here, that's a really good board. And if most of the time your opponent can't get rid of the Decode and the True King the next turn, because you can just detach and make it so they can't do anything. So this is a really good way to set up a huge combo next turn. Like I said, I don't go into him too much, but if you find that the opportunity arises, he's a really good pick, and he's cheap because you can get him from structure decks, so definitely pick him up. Next is a bit of a meme card, and I run it just because it's fun. Reaper-Docus. He's dirt cheap, and I've only really used him once, and it basically won the game for me because of the fact that you can change the attributes of your own monsters as well. So you could use Reaper-Docus to get your True Kings out. That's about it. So, and plus it's a dinosaur, so you can banish it to get your Ultimate Conductor out. And that's the only reason to run him. And honestly, he's so cheap that, and if you really can't afford the more expensive links, then he's just a good substitute. There's no reason to run him, but if you want to and you feel a bit more memey, like that one game that I just described, definitely pick him up. There's no reason not to. He's like 50 cents or something, so he's just an extra to add on to the deck that you don't need, but hey, it could win you a game. It could win you a game. That's about it. This has been my budget True King Dino deck. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any questions, just leave a comment down below, and I'll make sure to check those out. If you have any recommendations for this deck, then go ahead and leave those down below. Like I said, I'm doing the budget version, so nothing super crazy. This is for people who just want to have fun as a hobby, locals, regionals, and stuff like that. Not regionals, more like local and casual. So with that, I hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks Shadowrealm TCG for letting me come on here. I'll see you guys later.